full of pilgrims whispering their stories. There are more guards in the temple, and the money changers glance around nervously. There's a sense of anticipation in the air, of joyfulness and celebration at the thought of freedom, God's rescue in the past, and may we dare hope God's rescue to come. It's the week before Passover, and the people gather. And here, 2,000 years on, we also gather. We gather in the presence of the Lord. We gather with God and wait and watch as we witness Jesus' journey in that final week of his life. We watch and we see how the lives of ordinary people are changed forever by their meeting with Jesus in that week. And we listen to Jesus' words, and we meet with him once again in this week that we now call Holy Week. And so to remind us, we light a candle, because here in this place and now at this time, God is present with us. So good evening. Welcome to our first Holy Week meditation. The evening will be very quiet. It will consist this evening of Lectio Divina, which is the divine reading. So it will be very, very calm and very peaceful. May we pray. Lord God, the God of Advent and Christmas, Lent and Easter, Pentecost and Revelation, thank you that we can come together at this time to gaze with awe at your handiwork, at everything that you have accomplished, at everything we see in the life of Jesus that helps us see who you are. Thank you for the scripture, the witness testimony, the gospel that tells us how we today can call you Abba, Father. Thank you for the life that Jesus led, so blameless, so free of sin. Thank you for all that Jesus taught us through his words and through his actions. And thank you, most of all, Lord, for his incredible sacrifice, his submission to the betrayal and the pain and the agony of the cross. And thank you that because of this, we are redeemed. So please, come among us now and open our hearts to reflect, to offer up our worship and our thanks, to hear the message that you have for each one of us in this Holy Week. In the name of Christ our Saviour. Amen. We have a question on the screen. Why do we have this cross and these symbols before us? We say together, they remind us of Jesus' journey, of the things he did and the people he met, because this is Holy Week and Friday is coming. Andy will lead us in our first reading, which is from John 13.
Evening, everybody. So we're going to dwell in the Word. We're going to engage with a discipline that I think is familiar to everybody, of Lectio Divina, of divine reading, a repetitive reading. And I think we're all friends, so I think we can discuss what we think God may be saying to us. I know there are a few people joining us on the stream. Good evening. If you want to join in, then please just put your comments in the chat, and I'm sure that Simon can relay those to us. We're going to begin with a reading from John 13. Is it on the screen, Simon? Good. Can I encourage you to not read it? Can I encourage you to just listen, particularly in the first instance? I'm going to read from John 13. I'm sure it's familiar, but in the first reading, just allow yourself to hear the scene, picture it in your mind's eye. Become familiar with what is said. It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped round him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part of me." "Well then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him. And that was why he said not every one was clean. When he'd finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example, that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth. No servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." Just take a moment for that to settle into you. You may just want to take a couple of deep breaths and be present as we come and hear the word read a second time. A moment of quiet. going to read the passage again. As I do, I invite you to prayerfully hear the words. Picture the scene in your mind's eye, if that's helpful. I invite you to listen to the Spirit and invite the Spirit to to allow an idea, a phrase, an image to stand out, to shimmer, to disturb you, cause questions in your soul. So we hear the passage read a second time. John chapter 13. It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. He knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel round his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped round him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. "No," said Peter. "No, you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "What then, Lord?" Simon Peter replied, "Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said, "Not everyone was clean." When he'd finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is the messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." A moment of quiet for you to just digest that and ask the Spirit what is your attention drawn. Lectio Divina is, of course, a spiritual discipline that we can engage with individually, but I think there's something unique about doing it in community. And I'd like to do that this evening. I encourage you to get into groups of, well, whatever number I say, you're going to do what you feel like anyway. So whatever small group number size you feel. And we're going to take about 5 minutes, a minute to just sort yourselves out, 2 minutes each way. What stood out for you? What do you think God is putting a finger on for you or for us? So 4 or 5 minutes just to do that. If I can encourage you to maybe share, I was going to run around with a mic, but I won't, I'll relay it to the stream. We've had one comment on the stream that is what stood out. was, it's only our feet that need washing once our bodies are clean. That's what jumped out for you. Myra, you caught my eye just then. What stood out for Helen? You know better than that. You should look down. What stood out for you, Myra? No, let's do the mic.
All Lent, it's just been standing out for me how human Jesus was, as well as divine. And in this, it's saying, and he knew he had come from God, and he was going back to him. Still went ahead. He knew everything.
Yeah, for me, I think it was the, unless I wash you, you can have no part of me. Completely reliant on his grace.
Good discipline to say what somebody else shared rather than you. Who else wants to catch my eye? Helen, you looked at the wrong time there.
Pauline was saying, we're forever questioning. And Jesus said, don't question me. You know, this is what I'm saying, so this is what's happening.
So Helen was talking about, she wondered where Peter was in the order of the washing.
Trying to get the words, but I can't remember what the exact words. It's the powerful bit. It's the full extent, and I think that came through various bits of the passage. But right at the start, sort of laying it out. You know, this is it. This is what I've promised. This is it. All here.
I think I was similar to Helen actually in a way, just that. And I think maybe the words and the familiarity of them and the kind of Bible, but just imagining it as a film, two things, the intimacy of it, and that just picturing the actual scene of, so where was Peter? How many times had Jesus washed his feet? Did they just carry on with banter, or was it really quiet? Or I guess that's what stood out for me. There's food on the table, there's all the smells, all of that, just that kind of real sensual side of it. I'm not going to make you all if you don't want to, but do you want to share what stood out for you? Was anything similar or different? Or?
For me, it was the command that Jesus gave at the end for us to go and do the same. The real challenge there to go and do that, and this isn't just an academic exercise of sitting here. Actually, go and do.
I was struck by how everybody is equal in God's eyes, that the servant and the master are both, the master isn't more senior than the servant.
About the words, the full extent of his love. This bit of part of what, it's full extent of it starts with, as we go through Holy by Friday, see the
Having said that, I liked the whole sensual and the thinking, just the picture of it, ordinariness and the intimacy of it, that stood out for me as well, Georgina. It came time for him to leave the world, so we're laying this out. This is the kind of Easter thing. It's all there. It's all, and now he showed them the full extent of his love, which means the cross, right? No. Well, maybe, but the very next scene we have, and this is what you're saying, Alex, I guess, is that this servant, we call it servant leadership, don't we? But he gets down, shows them the full extent of his love, by washing feet. That's pretty huge, although there is a footnote. He loved them to the last. Yeah, okay. Anything to add from the back? There's something on the screen, is there? Let me see. The humanity of Jesus, that idea that he felt hot and cold and tired and hungry, thirsty, that he was a person, he was human. I love it. Do you want to add anything, Simon, Louise? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So for Simon, just for those on the stream who won't have heard that, that idea of Peter maybe just being a bit greedy, just, actually foot washing's not good enough. I want a bath. I want the whole shooting match. And Jesus very gently, to me anyway, I would say gently says, no, just your feet. Somebody has pointed out, isn't it? Is that, it was somebody on the stream about just your feet. I love it when we do this and a similar theme comes out. I also love it when we show the depth, that's what if we spent 5 minutes, and I think everybody's had something different and all valid and all coming from the text. There's so much here. So much. There's enough for an elephant to swim in as well as a toddler to paddle. The exercise, the spiritual discipline of Lectio Divina, of dwelling in the Word, is that for a third reading, we begin to reflect on what God might be calling us to do in response to this text. It's what you said, Chris. You go and do. So as we read for a third time, I invite you to maybe take the bit that stood out to you, or if God draws your attention to something else, that's okay. But with what stood out to you, and with the third reading of the passage, how is God by his Spirit prompting you to live this out in that world out there that's so much noisier than in here? So let's just hear the passage read for a third time. I'll then leave a good chunk of time afterwards for you to prayerfully reflect on what you are questioning, what you think God might be calling you to do. And then I'll invite you to share with others. A third reading. It was just before the Passover feast. And Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel round his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus replied, You don't realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. "No," said Peter. "No, you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Well then, Lord, Simon Peter replied, well, not just my feet then, but my hands and my head as well. Jesus answered, a person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you, for he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said, not every one of you is clean. When he'd finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth. No servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. A moment of quiet to prayerfully reflect on that passage, on that scene with God. you in similar groups, maybe just to try and give voice to something that God has been saying to you, about how this could land in your... Doesn't necessarily need to be an action. I need to go and wash my partner's feet when I get home. It doesn't need to be that. It could just be, I need to trust more, or I need to, whatever it is. I just encourage you to give voice to it, because as you give voice to it, it helps thoughts become concrete. Just a few minutes to share in groups about what God has been prompting you to say. If you want to put it in the chat on YouTube, we'll relay it. Thank you. Just another minute. If you haven't shared, then swap around. Let's draw our thoughts together. Just something from the stream. I'm paraphrasing, putting my own spin on this, and there's a lovely chorus, brother, sister, let me serve you, let me be as Christ to you, which is the easy bit. The harder bit is let me have the grace to let you be my servant too. That idea of Peter not wanting it really, and I think actually lots of us are bad at being the receiver. We like the bit where we get to be Jesus to others, but it's harder to let others be Jesus to us. I think that's important. The thing that stood out for me, I think the thing that I'm feeling is just the importance of meals. How many times does something significant happen in the Gospels around food? And we're having the meeting in May where we're going to share food again. And I was in two minds about whether men's breakfast would be on Saturday. If you're on the stream and you're a man, we're having breakfast. I'll put it on the WhatsApp chat. But just that importance of food and community around food. But then the real challenge I was feeling is how do you take men's breakfast to the next level of foot washing, of that intimacy, of that getting real and dealing with issues of sin and discipleship, as well as bacon and hash browns. So, challenge for me. Other thoughts? Go for it, Chris.
Georgina said about the bit at the end where they were blessed by this. Sometimes we actually just need to sit back and receive that blessing. That kind of Peter said, yeah, well then do this and do this and do this, overthinking it. Actually, just needed to and let Jesus love him and the blessing, overthinking things.
Thank you. You don't need to worry if you make eye contact with me. I'm not going to thrust the mic at you this time. But anybody else want to share what somebody else said? Simon.
Okay, so obviously in their day, they're up to their ankles and knees in sand, so foot washing is a daily practice. What would be the equivalent in today's Western world?
I guess the third reading is that opportunity to ask, so Simon, what would be the equivalent in today's Western world? What's the answer? Anybody else? What do you think? What would it be?
African is in church.
So did you hear, I hope you heard that on the stream, that just that idea of maybe in some African cultures washing one another's hands. Maybe we should do that with alcohol gel before we eat at men's breakfast. I don't know. I wonder if it's just acknowledging one another. I think we're so busy and so insular that actually just smiling at people is a blessing. I don't know if that's... I don't know. But yeah, I just wonder whether... I think that's the question. I think that's the question we're all wrestling with, really, is as a church, we want to serve and bless a community, but foot washing's not really culturally relevant, so what is? And I think that's a great question to be wrestling with. And maybe that's the practical outcome. I'm being cheeky by throwing it back to you, Simon. But maybe the practical calling is to wrestle with that question. What does it look like? What does it look like for us to wash our community's feet?
I was thinking not just about foot washing, but also about how we are thinking about our play of bowls. We all have a part to play, about recognising that each of those roles is important. Sometimes it's really easy for us to say, oh, they're the priest, they're the teacher, they're in charge. It's really important. And also being careful not to be jealous of other people's positions and things like that, and actually focusing on what we should be doing in playing our own part in the whole wider jigsaw of life.
Love that. I hope you heard that. Just that, what are we being called to do? Just that idea, there's only one of you. Only one of you called to do what you can do. And let's own that. Mary, did you have?
I was just struck by my thoughts were completely sorted out by Helen's thoughts. My thought was, it's so helpful to realise that Jesus was completely human and that he understands us completely. And he understands our humanness and flaws. And I just find him inspiring and want to strive harder to follow his example. So then Helen.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking almost the opposite. In actual fact, we can strive as hard as we like. But if we're trying to do things in our own power, we're not going to get very far. We need Jesus. We need to be able to allow Jesus to work through us. So yeah, it's good to try and follow Jesus' example, but not just on our own strength. And I just had this picture of somebody in the sea. And if they were trying to get to shore, they could swim and swim and swim and swim and swim. Might get there eventually. Or they could just float and allow the sea to gently wash. It's supposed to be.
It was Chris sharing for Georgina that idea of just receive. I think we're getting down to the pointy end of it here in all of these things, in Simon's question, but in this difficulty that you still have to put effort in to float, don't you? I think, and if I stop moving, I think I sink. So we still have to put effort in, but there's this interplay that's so tricky to understand. Of we need to put effort in, but we also need God's Spirit to be at work. Is it the effort? Maybe we move from floating to sailing. Actually the wind, the power comes from the wind, but we've got to trim the sails. If you get that wrong, you just come to a dead stop. There's no wind, nobody moves, no matter how hard you beat the sails. But if your sails aren't trimmed right, you won't catch the. Am I right? Oh no, I'm going to get told off now.
So it just makes a lot of sense to me now. Because Alex was talking about overthinking, we were talking about anxiety and how we can overthink things and then almost talk ourselves out of doing. And so there's the effort of what we feel called, but then your words were a fear of messing up. And so we'll overthink it here and we'll do things in fear rather than up. Yeah, sorry. I just thought that made so much sense to me.
I'll come to you, Louise. Was there something over here? Was it similar to that? Similar? There was just a positive noise, but this is real, isn't it? I think you're absolutely on something there, Alex. That paralysis that comes from fear and rather than moving, and we come back to something that Chris has said in the past about something's worth doing. It's worth doing badly. I think I'm trimming that a little bit. If something's worth doing, it's worth just doing it. Even if it's a bit not perfect, it's better to do, it's better to move. Come back to the sailboat thing. A sailboat can be steered when it's moving, when it becomes it's harder. So yeah. So we all picked out something different, but there's some themes in the practicalities of it. Louise.
thinking when you were talking about effort is, sometimes I think letting go and letting God does require a huge amount of effort in itself. So
I love that. I hope you heard it. That this idea of all we need to do as Christians is let go and let God. I think there's a lot wrong with that. But actually, it's that idea of actually there is an effort in letting go. We need to put our effort in to let God. And that's the trimming your sails, isn't it? So it's both. The answer is always both, and I think that's what you learn in theological college. It's always both. Anything from over here? Just a couple of things from the chat. This idea of in our toddler group, we often pray that nobody would leave without having a significant conversation. And I think, I've never really thought about this, but I think it's easy to interpret that as a prayer for a significant conversation about Jesus. But actually the prayer is just to have a conversation and to hear from, to bless somebody just by speaking to them. And that's my answer, Simon, about actually I think washing feet is just acknowledging somebody's humanity and connecting. I think that we live in a world that's so starved of connection. And just that idea of, seeing people for themselves and not and I can't see behind this art thing. Seeing people for themselves. Thank you. Or not the relationships to others and other stuff, but just seeing people for who they are. That comes back to this idea that God sees us, that intimacy, sees us everything and says, I love you. I'm just going to read the passage one last time, if that's okay. And I will just end there and hand back to Helen. I think you've got some bits to say. John 13, it was just before the Passover feast. And Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel round his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. No, said Peter, you'll never wash my feet. Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Then, Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Jesus answered, a person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you. For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he'd finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. And now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Go now and learn what it means.
microphone will just. Thank you for coming this evening. It's been really good. Just spend time. This situation, this gathering that we've read about. We're going to have the opportunity to do that again every evening up until Thursday. And in a moment we're going to. Then there will be a song that you may not know that will be played. Can we have it played quite quiet, Simon? You're very welcome to stay and listen to the song, stay and pray, or if you do need to leave, welcome to leave. But if I could just. Let's pray. Lord, I just want to thank you for this precious time this evening. Thank you for revealing yourself and message to us in so many wonderful ways. Father, help us to capture this. Help us to remember what you've spoken to us this evening. Yes, Lord, see how that can shape our lives, shape us into the that this is Holy Week. And we that Friday is coming. And we so please and go with us as we leave the rest of the evening. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Come and see the King. See the purple robe and crown of thorns. He lifts the cruel cross. Lone and friendless now he climbs towards the hill. And we worship at your feet, where wrath and mercy meet. The guilty world is washed by love's pure stream. For us he was made sin. Oh, help me take it in. People of love cry out, Father. I worship the Lamb. And we come and mourn for your sin that pierced him there, so much deeper than the wounds of thorn. All our pride, all our greed, all our fallenness and shame, and the Lord has laid the punishment on him. Man of heaven, born to work, to restore